In this video, we will show how to create a custom grouped seam wash. The following will be covered in this video: extracting a seam wash from a reference image, creating a freehand seam wash. We will begin by extracting a seam wash from a reference image. We will use the image from the downloadable resources for this lesson. Open the image in Photoshop. It is important to use a high-quality image when extracting a wash. With this type of image, we can make a detailed effect. The first step is to flip the image. When we bring the image into VStitcher, the top edge will be the edge that aligns with the pattern edge. Go to Image, Image Rotation, Flip Vertical. Next, we crop the image. Select the crop tool from the toolbar. To crop the image, drag the bounding box towards the centered seam. Keep a bit of space at the top and bottom of the seam. We can also crop from either side where the edge of the seam is not as even horizontally. Press Enter to confirm the crop area. The center of the seam is a bit bowed. We will use the warp tool to straighten out the seam. First, we need some rulers to help us straighten the seam. If not already on, turn on rulers. Go to View, Rulers. With the Select tool, drag from the top to create a ruler. Align it with the edge of the seam on one side. Repeat for the stitch lines. Now we can clearly see the seam is bowed. Let's fix it. First, unlock the background layer so we can edit it. Go to the main menu, Edit, Transformations, Warp. The Warp tool creates points along a grid that can be moved to warp the image. The grid and the points can be tailored as needed. In this case, we will work with the default grid. In the center of the bowed area, click and drag up to position the stitches within the rulers. We can also grab a point handle on the edge to make sure the stitch lines match the rulers. That looks much better. Confirm the adjustment by pressing Enter. With the Select tool, drag the rulers up and back towards the top ruler to remove them. Like with the all-over wash, this image must repeat. It only needs to repeat horizontally. After using warp, the image may not match the canvas shape, or it may extend outside the canvas. This will cause a gap in the repeat when we move on to the next step. We can also crop the image so that the dark seam area is aligned with the top edge. Before proceeding, let's crop the image. Choose the crop tool and crop the image to match the canvas. Adjust the crop area to match the top of where the dark seam begins. Now we can create the repeat. Let's use the Offset tool again. Go to the main menu, Filter, Other, Offset. The previous offset values will show. Change the horizontal offset to 1000 and the vertical offset to 0. Click OK. If your seam or stitches are misaligned by only a little bit, we can blend the difference. If it is very off, you may want to pause, undo, and repeat the warp. To blend the seam, let's use the clone stamp. We use the same stamp as the previous. Select the Clone Stamp tool. Make a clone selection by hovering the mouse over the area you want to clone. Hold Alt on the keyboard and left-click once. To stamp the cloned area, click with your mouse where you want to place it. Pause here if you need more time to blend the repeat image. Now we need to select all the white areas in the image. To select a specific color, we use Select Color Range. A window will appear. We need to sample a color from the image. With your mouse, hover over a white area of the image, then click. We can use the fuzziness slider to select colors close to the color we selected. Let's set the value to 120. Click OK. Now the white area in the image is selected. Let's make a copy of this selected area on a new layer. Copy the area by using Ctrl or Command plus C. In the Layers panel, click the icon to add a layer. With the new layer selected, paste using Ctrl or Command plus V. Hide the original image layer. Let's add a solid color layer so we can see the wash easily. The copied area has some color tint. We want the texture to be grayscale. With the copied wash layer selected, go to the main menu, Image, Adjustments, Desaturate. Now we can clean up the image. The bottom edge needs to be smoothed so that it will blend naturally into the fabric. The stitch lines should be removed and the white above the seam edge should also be removed. With the eraser and the soft round brush, let's clean up the bottom edge and the seam lines. The bottom edge should fade to transparent a bit from the bottom stitch line. Let's add some variation to the edge while erasing. Make the brush much smaller to erase the stitch. To erase in a straight line, hold Shift and click to start the line. Then, continuing to hold Shift, click where you want to end the line. Change the brush type to hard round to erase above the seam edge. We don't need a wash effect above the edge. We now have the light wash for the seam. If you need more time to create the light wash, pause here. Now we do the same for the dye pooling area. Hide the light wash layer and show the original image layer. With the original image layer selected, go to Select Color Range. Sample the darker denim area, then click OK. Copy the selected area. Go to the Layer panel and add a new layer. Paste the selection on the new layer. Hide the original layer. Go to Image, Adjustments, Desaturate. Now we can repeat the erasing steps. Remember to change the brush back to soft round. To add more variation to the seam, we can erase a bit between the pooling areas. This will bring out more of the wash effect. Go back to the hard round brush to erase the top edge. Pause here if you need more time to clean up the dye pooling image. The seam is nearly done. Hiding the two new layers, let's review the original image. The seam has a very dark edge. We should create this for our seam as well. Add a new layer. Let's make the gradual shadowed edge. With the soft round brush using black, click once while holding Shift to start a straight line along the shadow. Click holding Shift to end the line. Repeat a second time. Now we have a gradient shadow effect. Pause here if you need more time to finish the shadow. Finally, let's adjust the scale. Go to Main Menu, Image, Image Size. Let's set the height to 0.5 inches. Save the file as a PSD so we can adjust it if needed later. Let's save each custom layer as a PNG. Hide all the layers but the light wash. Then choose File, Export, Quick PNG. Repeat for the other custom layers. Pause here to save the PNG wash layers. In VStitcher, let's load the PNGs as seams. Drag one icon over the other to group the washes. Assign the seam to the back rise. Set the light wash to overlay material blending and adjust the transparency. Set the dye pooling layer to multiply and adjust the transparency. Set the shadow layer to multiply and adjust the transparency. Now we can add the stitches. We can download a single needle from the Seams and Trims library. Group the single needle to the wash group. Copy the face to the back on the single needle. We can set the offset value to 0.08 inches. Set the line count to 2. Set the distance to 0.15 inches. Set the length to 10 SPI. Last, we recolor the stitch color to dark yellow. Let's make one more adjustment. Dye pooling often appears under the stitches. Let's make this effect. Clone the single needle seam. Recolor the seam to black. Now we need to use the thread properties to increase the width. Set the width to 2.5 inches. The stitches are now no longer aligned. Let's decrease the offset to 0.02 inches and distance to 0.02 inches. Reorder the layers. Set the blending mode to multiply and reduce the transparency. Now we have a completed custom seam. Let's rename the seam Double Needle Wash. Pause here to finish customizing your double needle wash seam. Let's review one other way to create wash seams. We can freehand create a wash effect with a texture in it. First, we need an image with a very clear denim texture. Let's use the back image of this denim fabric. Click the diffuse map and choose Edit Externally. Crop the image to about 0.375 inches in height and width to 4 inches. Create a solid color layer, then hide it. Select the background layer. Then use Select Color Range to select all the white color areas. Now add a new layer. Reorder the layers so that the new layer is above the solid color layer. Show the solid color layer. With a white brush, we can create the wash effect in the selection. With a soft round brush, create a line across the top of the image for the wash. Then we add puckering areas. Use Select Deselect to remove the selected area. With the soft round brush on white and a lowered transparency, brush the top edge along the wash to highlight it. Now we have a wash for the single needle seam. Let's save the PSD for later use and save a separate PNG file. Back in VStitcher, we add the PNG as a seam. Adjust the scale, blending mode, and transparency as needed. We can create a dye pooling seam as well from this wash. Cloning the wash, we group it with the original image. Now we have a seam group. Opening the image editor under the Crop tab, we crop out some of the wash puckering. This makes the wash layers different sizes. Now the puckering areas will stagger along the seam. Change the blending mode to multiply and recolor the seam to a dark gray. Let's add a shadow edge to this layer. Use Edit Externally. Erase the white line on the top edge. With the brush, add a shadow effect as we did with the previous seam. Save the file. Now the dark wash has the edge shadow included. Let's borrow a seam from the double needle grouped seam. Selecting the double needle wash seam group, clone the single needle and single needle shadow. Remove the clones from the group. Drag and drop the cloned layers to create a seam group with the new wash. Changing the single needle stitch and shadow to 1 for the line count, we now have a single needle wash seam. Let's update the seam name. In this video, we learned how to create seam washes. For more information on the topics discussed, check out the video description.